The Father Factory is a coaching service for dads that addresses the intergenerational impact of their trauma from childhood sexual violence. Voice lessons will help to bridge the traumatic past with its current developed spiritual, medical, physical, and behavioral conditions that are the result of CSV. Join us to help dads be intentional parents.
I'm back with my final discussion with Quentin Walcott. We're celebrating survivors of domestic violence and honoring victims with dignity to speak out against this violence. Enjoy. You hit it right on, and a burning question, and I'll add to all of that, is this. And you're like the perfect person to talk to about it, because every time that we've talked and we did this work together, I've always got this sense of the honor and respect we pay to our women.
Right.
And but we live in a society where we over-sexualize everything, right? And there are most of us men who cannot look at a woman, cannot touch a woman, be near a woman, and not make it sexual.
Right.
What are ways that we can counter that thinking and that toxic thinking, and regulate that for our brothers?
Right. And I think that's part of our socialization, man. Like when we were younger, it's part of our rites of passage to kind of, dehumanize women in a lot of ways, to see them as objects and property.
Yeah.
And sometimes some of us get stuck in that, you know what I mean? Like that's all they are. But, it's really about seeing them as human beings.
Yeah.
And respecting them for not what they do for us, but who they are, right? I do exercise all the time with young people, or even adults sometimes. I can say, who are the women in your life, women or girls you respect, and why?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of the brothers would say, I respect my mom for having me, respect my grandmother for taking care of me, for feeding me, for waking me up in the morning. It's all these me's, I.
Yeah.
Say who's a man you respect and why.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I respect my father for what he did for our family and for the people and who he is as a person and all these great grandiose things. But we respect women and girls for what they do for us.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's almost like
Wow.
two ways of looking at men and women. So we look at men, we respect men for their humanity and for being human beings. And we respect women and girls for what they do for us. Wow. And so kind of like a servitude, even though it's about love ultimately, but even how we represent it as my mom has done so much for me. That's why but my father, he does so much for the world, right? Or he's a leader in his field or whatever it may be. But so it's just how we frame things, and that develops our attitude towards women and girls. And, we live in a really one way some people say it's hypersexualized. And in one way people say, the West is very conservative when we think about sex and bodies, right? Compared to other countries in the East. And, but yeah, we need to kind of work on our attitudes and belief systems.
Yeah.
And therefore our behavior should change.
Yeah.
Or sometimes we go with behavior change, but we don't go with attitude adjustments or thinking the way how we view the world and we view women and girls. And a lot of that is about having conversations, right? We have to have the conversations you had with your fathers that I have with my fathers and men in these round tables. We'll talk about that. Like, why are we thinking about women in this way? Why are we treating them this way? What are our attitudes? And what can we do to change that? So a lot of it is about building a level of respect for them. Like, just one real quick example on that.
Yeah.
There was a young kid and a young person. No, not even, this is adult men actually. Yeah. I asked them, who was your mother before they had you and before they got married? Right. And this is the question following the one, what's the woman you respect and why? Right. So a lot of these guys had no idea who their mothers were before they existed. One guy was like, I saw a picture of her. She had a ballet leotard on. So maybe she was a dancer. I don't know. It's like, so, and then tell me about your father. Oh yeah, he was born in 1945, sharecropper. His parents were this and this and that. he went to third grade level of school, he became this, he became, right? But we don't know who our mothers are. We just know them as my mom, and she cooks for me, she takes care of me, she loves me, right? So it's just, again, how do we respect and view women, and how do we view men in society, and what do they mean to us? And also, what is it about society that says that it's more important to know about, bad example, more important to know about Barack Obama than it is to know about Michelle. Like, before Michelle came along, we know nothing about these first women, really. It's about the president, it's about the leader, it's about the man.
Yeah, and you know, what we did know about the first ladies is what they wore.
That's it.
It was like, yeah, she wore this, and a lot of that comparison was actually going on. And this is powerful because I think, you know, we perpetuate that same narrative in our own households as it comes to our, you know, airways, and we just kind of embrace it and take it, and it is what it is, and not. I don't think we're very good at discerning that this is potential to shape the worldview of our young people and for ourselves, and cause us to potentially go towards a place of violence with them. There's work that's been done around looking at the effects of pornography. And I talked about this with in one of the other interviews that I did, and that the porn industry is now saying that they have found that their viewers want more, like their craving has grown for more sex, and more particularly for young people.
Right.
And so it's getting like younger and younger, and like really getting to that place. And so the work and the science behind it is showing that it's expanding the span of pedophiles that are actually being developed and brought about in our society because of this shift in how we're viewing, you know, human beings in this way. So what you're saying, to take point, that, you know, that's really powerful to kind of think along those lines and really address that behavior, which really fuels that belief that really refuse that behavior, and stopping them right there. I think also, like, you know, as we talk about domestic violence, hypermasculinity, we do often leave out same-sex communities. And the same-sex community, I can imagine, like, are finding themselves being silenced around this issue, right? So it's the layers of, right, you're presenting as, you know, gay, or however you present, and then now there's these real issues that, you know, span over religion, culture, and everything, and now you're in a domestic violence issue. Any things in terms of like statistics around that, or yeah.
The stats say that, you know, domestic violence and LGBTQ same-sex relationships happen at the same rates as heterosexual relationships.
Wow.
So it's like, you know, whatever the numbers are of occurrences, it's the same. What I would say is that this, you know, just like with other groups, you know, there's less services available. You know what I mean? Like, where do you go? I mean, in New York City, one of our community partners, AVP, is a resource where folks can go, but there's not enough AVPs. You know, we need more places where folks in those relationships can go to. You know, just like there is, we need places where that have consider language. You know, like, you know, you just can't send somebody who doesn't speak English into an English-speaking group, or more groups that are culturally, ethnically, that consider identity, sexual orientation, you know, different types of variables that are important to people getting the help that they need. More of those resources are necessary. There are not even enough batterers groups, or there's not enough batterers programs for heterosexual relationships. You know, so there's the overall uh, I hate to say industry, but the whole overall work or movement is lacking in resources. And then also looking at, a lot of folks will not go to systemic approaches, will not go to the police or the courts to deal with some of these issues. And if you're not mandated to a group, you're not ending up in a group where you're getting help. So we have to look at programs outside of the typical systems where people feel safe enough to go to, no matter what your orientation is, no matter, what your ethnicity or what language you may speak. It's important that we have services available inside the system or outside the system, whatever, if you have a choice in it. So we look at restorative justice now. We're looking at transformative justice as a means of dealing with domestic violence and intimate partner violence for folks that may not want to go to the systems, because the systems treat Black and brown folks differently. They treat, women differently. They treat you differently based on your socioeconomic status. They treat you differently depending on who you're in a relationship with. So, the system has a lot of problems. So it makes it very difficult, no matter who you in a relationship with, to get the help that you need. Yeah. So I think that's, and probably more so, the more layers of oppression that you may have, if you're undocumented, if you're, same-sex relationship, if you have a certain amount of kids, all the different types of things that may come up.
Yeah, I think the fact that we leave a lot of the help and the fixing of problems in the hands of systems is probably the issue, right? In the scriptures, you see the children of Israel being dealt with as a community, and they dealt with issues as communities. And I think of to just ask you, what are some of those things that our community has normalized when it comes to domestic violence? If we as a community can actually point out those things that are actually hurting us and perpetuating and getting us to that place. And I know we kind of mentioned pieces here and there about, if she hits you, then that means she likes you, but there's been some normalizing of this behavior amongst us. What do you see in that?
I think we normalize it because we normalize trauma, right? A lot of the treatment of ourselves and the way we're treated by others comes out of historical trauma, comes out of community trauma, family trauma, individual trauma. And we talk about domestic violence, but there's also sexual violence. That's probably even more silent or seen as a private internal issue than domestic violence is. So I think a lot of it is we've normalized violence in general. We normalize violence against people of color and Black people as normal, and it's to be expected. It's also about the face that we see. Domestic violence does not discriminate, actually, right? Everybody's impacted by it. The responses from systems is different, right? The responses of who ends up in the newspaper, just the images that we see around it. So you would never think sometimes that white people about this, but they have their own challenges. Not every white person is rich, but some that are more affluent I'll pay a price to make their their private business known publicly, because that can impact their money. So survivors who are struggling with that have to face that as well, or embarrassment. Everybody deals with shame connected to it, but we normalize and have an expectation that these things are to be happening to people of color and Black men and Black women and Latinos, and so part of it is like just this kind of normalization of trauma, and we think it's okay, and it's okay for us not to get help too, right, or deal with our mental health issues that might be created as a result of perpetual and continual violence from generation to generation. So we normalize it in so many different ways, just in the ways that we treat women and boys and girls differently in our households. We talked about that earlier, or in the schools, or in the workplace. If we normalize all these things that are connected to treating men differently, treating people who have power or money or affluence differently. And we're seeing it right now just in terms of COVID response and health disparities impacting Black and brown communities more so. And what was interesting about this, and we talked about this a lot in the men's roundtable, was that COVID impacted men and men of color more than any other group at the heights of it in New York City, right? It may have changed now that it's moving into, middle America, but to look at all of that, what does that mean about our health and wellness? So we normalize a lot of very unhealthy things that we need to kind of, re-examine. So, and see that this is not normal. Feeling terrible about it is okay, but we can't stay there. We have to kind of improve ourselves and improve our families and have healthier communities that way.
Final question, and I thank you so much for your time with us today. This is amazing. It's going to help so many people. And that's really where I'll lead off to that final question. What can communities do to help, right? I'm thinking of this in a way that, how do we just take it out of the hands of systems and governments and this group or this organization, that organization? What can the average person on the street do to help? And in that also, just speak to a little bit about what happens when the individual gets help. So what I'm imagining is that if someone's listening to us and saying, I'm currently in this situation, what will it look like if I call? What will they say? Will I have to tell them the person's name that's doing this to me? Will they interview that person? Will it, they may be terrified of, the whole idea of speaking out loud about it. But what I've seen with Connect particularly is you guys have a great way. I'm sure this is also ingrained in the work throughout other organizations, but this safety plan, right? Is it safe to move now? Is it safe for these different steps to happen? So, that first part of it, where what can the average person do? And then the final part of it, when I get the help that I need, what will it look like for me?
Right, and I think we have to be, I say this all the time, I've said it for years, we need to deprivatize the notion of domestic violence as being a private issue. It shows up everywhere. Everybody, if people who are listening to us right now, raise your hand if you've been a victim of domestic violence, right? Or any type of violence, right? Raise your hand if you've witnessed domestic violence, heard it, seen it, didn't know what to do about it. Raise your hand. Raise your hand if you've, and this is the hard one, right? Raise your hand if you've committed some form of violence or domestic violence, even in your relationship or in your community, right? Some of us will raise our hand for all three. Maybe just one of them or two of them. But the fact that you've raised your hand means that it's a public issue. We have to deal with this, right? So be it a system or not, when we started Connect, and a shout out from the staff to you, from Sally, Marlon, Shireen, I think those are probably the only three that you know of from your time and day there. But our work when we first started was to kind of figure out what is the community's attitudes around this. Where go for help, and if you're not going to a particular place, why not, right? So we have to kind of ask those questions. Where are you going? A lot of folks said they want to go to their faith institution, right? And because they see it as a place of sanctuary, but faith institutions may not know how to deal with this issue, right? So they may give the wrong advice and things like that. So I said it to say that everybody needs to build their capacity around it, not necessarily be experts on it, but partner with experts, partner with the local shelter or the DV organization or sexual violence organization, and call helplines, right? That doesn't necessarily mean that you're starting a case, but you're getting help from someone about how do I handle this? I've been abused, or I feel like I'm going to abuse someone. What can I do? I don't want to take it to that level, But I think, so definitely be in contact with your local DV helplines. It might be a 311, calling 311, getting just kind of what the local things are in your area, but not necessarily starting a case, because, you know, a lot of times people call and that's not what the victim survivor wants. You got to find out what they want and what they need in that moment, right? So don't make the decisions for them, because that's what they're trying to get away from, someone making all their decisions and having power and control and manipulating them to go one way. So we need to kind of figure out what the victim survivor wants, and not only deal with the victim survivor. Not only deal with the victim survivor, you may know the person who's doing the abuse or doing the harm. Check in with them. What's going on with you? You know, I heard what happened. Don't put your opinions in there, but just kind of, I heard, I saw what happened. Do you need help? You don't need to deal with that. Even if they're dead wrong, you know, give them some resources and some support so they can, you know, make better decisions in their relationship. So get away from the relationship. If she's truly that bad and making you do all of this, you don't need to be in that relationship. Just as strategies of things to say, you know, but you don't have to approach only the victim survivor. Approach them separately. You know, I encourage you to do that separately, so you can get genuine, you know, responses when you ask, you know, what do you need? How can I help? You know, are you safe? You know, and like you said, the first thing that we want to do, particularly like faith-based institutions, or however you're trying to help, do no harm, right? You don't want to make it worse. So a lot of it is about, you know, just kind of getting information, safety planning at the very least. And safety planning looks very different. People safety plan for when they're thinking about leaving. People safety plan for when they've left. And people safety plan when they're about to leave as well. So there's different levels of safety planning and helping build people safety networks. Right? Sometimes your mom who wants you to stay in a relationship because you're married and you got kids may not be the person you need to have in your safety network. You're trying to get away, because they may tell the person abusing you exactly where you are. Oh, she's downstairs in the basement. You go ahead and go see her when she escaped, right? So we got to really think about who our safety network is. And that changes over time. And if you are too involved in this, and he or she is not doing what you want them to do, step away from it, because you replace the abusive partner in that relationship. And you get frustrated and upset that she's not doing what you want her to do, because you think you know something that she does not know. And you may know, but it's about empowering that person or helping them see, you know, what their tipping point is. And, you know, go from a strength base. What have you done to keep you safe so far? What are you doing to help the children right now? So different things you can do. There's a lot of organizations. Connect is one. You know, visit our website. Hopefully you'll post that later on. connectnyc.org. Check out our social media. We have a lot of tips, and you can call us, or you can go to our website. We can get you information and plug you into people. You know, we're still doing that, although we've transitioned our helpline to one of our community partners recently, but people are still calling us, and you get information from our websites. And then, you know, it's a one size fits all, right? And each case is different. So a lot of it is that you have to listen. Listen to what's going on, what is being said, and don't do most of the talking. You know, like really hear people, ask them what they need, how you can be helpful, give them resources, and they may not use the resources when you want them to. And that's part of our trauma as well, depending on what brings you into this work. You know, you have a lot of power over someone when they need you in a crisis. They may be smarter than you, they may have more money than you are, but in that moment, you have power, and you don't want to abuse your power in helping someone else. So there's a lot of different things you can do and use. But, you know, check in with me, check in with Connect and other local organizations, and it can help you how do you safety plan. And a lot of times people who help, they need help themselves because it's a stressful, traumatic situation for them as well. And also survivors and even perpetrators, men who abuse or people who are abusing in a relationship, they're traumatized as well. So we have to kind of remember, got to have like a trauma-informed approach despite our feelings. It's about them. It's not about us.
Wow. Q, thank you, brother. I appreciate you. This is, again, a blessing. So many people will be blessed from this. Any final words you want to say to anybody, shout outs or anything like that?
Shout out to my team at Connect. You know who you are. Shout out to our community partners. Shout out to families that hold us up in doing this work. Shout out to people who have lost lives and family members under COVID, and those who are still struggling with that, struggling with probably our longest pandemic in North America, the transatlantic slave trade that has manifested itself in racial violence and systemic racism. We gotta love each other. We gotta show love, and that's how we kind of move forward. Shout out to you, Hassan, and you elevating your work and doing your living up to your passion about this work. Proud of you, brother.
Thank you.
Follow connectnyc.org. Sign the Father's Day Pledge, the National Father's Day Pledge, fathersdaypledge.org, exactly how it sounds.
Yes.
And follow Connect on social media.
Yes.
I appreciate you, brother. Much love.
Yes. Same here. God bless. Thank you, brother.
All right.
Thank you for joining us for our discussion today. And please visit our website at www.thefatherfactory.com. Until next time, God bless and peace.